Hey everyone, today I'm going to walk you through the process of installing a Kinovo silicone heater onto a 3D printer build plate using high temp RTV. So, first thing you're going to need to do, grab your Kinovo heater mat. I ordered this from them directly using their website. I believe it's kinovo.store. And then I just specified no 3M adhesive. So they sent it to me just like this. The surface on the back is the exact same surface as the front. And there's no 3M adhesive whatsoever. This is exactly what we want. Next thing we're going to do, verify that this 110 volts and 300 watts is correct for this specific mat. So I wrote down just a simple calculation that you should be able to do. In this case, using these formulas, you'll eventually to the resistance of the mat should be equal to its its voltage squared divided by its power. This applies for AC and DC mats, this exact equation. It's quite simple. So in this case, I have 110 volts squared, and the mat is supposed to be 300 watts. So my expected my expected resistance should be 40.3 ohms. You can see here, 41.3 ohms. That is good enough. Okay, so now that we verified that we don't need to throw this mat away or don't need to order a new one, let's move on to preparing the build plate itself. So for this Mandala Roseworks build plate, you can see there's one side with magnets that are countersunk in, and the other side that's just flat. You're gonna want to apply your heater mat onto the flat side and not the side with magnets. If you apply it to this side, you might have some other issues, like, make sure you're applying it on this flat side if you're using this specific build plate. Your mileage may vary depending on other build plates, obviously, but for the most part, the Mandala Rosework ones are all the same in the sense that you apply the heater mat onto this side and not the side with the magnets. Anyways, so the first thing you're going to want to do is grab some sandpaper. Right here I have 60 grit, I believe. Yep. But really, I've seen people use anything from 60 to 150 to 300. Doesn't matter that much. Just grab your sandpaper and just sand this down a little bit. You can see I did kind of a crappy job, but it doesn't really matter too much. I actually forgot to record that part, so my apologies there. But I'm just gonna want to give this surface a rough sand. What that's gonna do is it's gonna make it so there's like these nice little divots all over from the sandpaper and this rough surface that is going to be much easier for the gasket maker or the RTV here to actually grab onto, and that's going to make your connection just a little bit more secure. Okay, once you've done that, go ahead and just wash your plate with a little bit of dishwashing soap, and what that's going to do is it's going to help you get all these little sort of particles off of when you were sanding it, and it's going to clean up your surface a little bit and also degrease it to some extent. Then what I like to do is I like to grab a little paper towel here and some isopropyl alcohol and just pour just a little bit on there, and I'm using my towel. By the way, this is after the dishwasher soap has or the dishwashing soap and water has all dried off and you wiped it all off with water. Just gonna isopropyl, and that's gonna remove any residue that might be there from the soap. Okay, next thing we're gonna want to do is have our mat and our build plate. Okay, the next thing we're gonna want to do is mask off our build plate. So we have here a 150 by 150 millimeter mat is what I ordered. This build plate, 185 by 185 from here to here. Not from here to here, but from here to here. We ignore these tabs. And from left to right, it's also 185. That leaves us with 17.5 millimeters on each side for the heater mat. I'm actually not going to go to 17.5. I'm probably going to add a little bit of a margin for error there, and I went about 14 millimeters, I'd say. And I'm just going to grab some masking tape. And first, I'm gonna go ahead and score this. Like I've already done this, as you can see, but I'm just gonna give an example. So I'm gonna score this by lining up one edge with the edge of the bed, and the other edge is gonna be scratching this. And then after we've scored that, I'm gonna take my masking tape. I'm just gonna, if you can see this line right here that I scored onto it, I'm just going to line this masking tape up. This up here. Line this last bit up here. Now that we have that all measured up, you can just throw this on as a quick tester. You can see, yep, fits decently well. I left a few millimeters on each end to account for being able to wiggle this around a little bit in case if I tape this too close, then there's a chance that I would actually probably misalign this, and for example, like this is an exaggeration of course, and have parts of the mat adhered onto the tape itself, which is what we don't want. Having it this way allows me to have a little bit of wiggle room for in case I bump it around a little bit. If I mess up a little bit like this, well, A, it'll be pretty obvious, and B, it's not going to be a huge deal because I won't be gluing onto tape. I'll be gluing still straight onto this aluminum. Okay, so now that we're set up with our bed all masked off, we can go ahead, take this out to a well-ventilated area. I'm just doing this out in my deck, and start prepping the RTV with our heater. So with this RTV, I'd really recommend using gloves. It actually says on the stuff itself to avoid any skin contact, and obviously don't touch your eyes when you're using this sort of stuff. Also, it has a pretty bad smell, so I'd actually recommend a mask, and given the events that have happened in the world recently, I'm sure we all have some sort of mask we can use. I actually got mine a little bit, I touched this a little bit, so I'm gonna have to give it a nice little wash with alcohol. Oh, that was way too much. Oh well. Now, before we get this going, a couple other things that I have this roller here that I'm going to use to apply it. I used a piece of cardboard and cut out a little slot in it so that for my heater mat, I don't crush the wire. Also have like a used credit card or gift card that I'm just going to use to spread the RTV, and I gotta clean that again. Okay, so now that we're all prepped and ready to go, I'm gonna go ahead and open this stuff. This stuff really smells, so the mask is pretty helpful. I can even smell it a little bit through the mask, but hey, if it works, it works. So yeah, chop off the tip. This isn't the best tool. Probably better. That's all I got. Okay. Now, I'm just gonna go put a pretty thick bead down. Remember, I can always add more later. Use our credit card here. Just trying to spread this out a little bit. And I'm gonna keep adding more because that was definitely not enough. Now that we have this already here, I'm going to go ahead and get our heater mat ready. So one thing to note, on this K3 mat, the back is actually this side. And we don't actually want our heater wires to be sticking out the back because of our 3-point leveling. So just keep that in mind when you're getting ready to do this. But now, I'm gonna go ahead and take this guy over here, orient it the way I want it to be oriented. So in this case, it's basically gonna be like that. And go ahead and take this. I'm just gonna go for the inside and roll it out and really get it stuck down. All right, once we got that rolled out pretty well, so I'm gonna go ahead and take off this tape. Doesn't really matter if it's ripped. Just want to make sure. Give it another press down with this. Really put your weight into it. Don't be afraid to press too much because you really want this to be well pressed. And you can see I actually messed up a little bit. Got some on here. It's not a big deal. Make sure what's important is actually just avoiding these holes to a decent extent. So keep that in mind. And you can see we're basically good. I'm gonna go ahead, grab one of these towels and do my best to, oh man, this is terrible, but wipe off as much of the excess as I can without dislodging the heater mat. So all right, we are all good to go. Now, let me go ahead, roll anything extra out. And now, we go ahead, put this on top of our second plate. top of that. And I'm going to grab this plate and just throw it on top of there. That should keep it pressed down pretty good. Okay, so now I've waited for my heater to set. I took the weight off. The instructions on my tube said 24 hours. It's a little bit longer than that right now, but I think it doesn't matter. Next thing we're going to be doing is sawing our thermal fuse, gluing it onto the mat, and then just for an extra protection, I'm going to do some RTV around the edges of the mat. It's not really necessary, but it's like I have this big tube. I don't need to use it all. And it's just a little bit of extra protection. So the first thing I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to use this masking tape and mask off just a little bit of an area around it. Unfortunately, I did a really terrible job and mine is super crooked. So that's something to consider, but let's see how. I'm gonna try to avoid these holes. But yeah. Now it's a little better. Okay, so go ahead. Screw this stinky garbage. Already got some on my hands, so you know that's great. Just gonna put a dab there and just plop that on. I'm fine. I don't care if I'm putting too much. Doesn't really matter. I'm just maybe I'll clean it up a little bit. Yeah, that's a really messy job. Whatever. Just gonna throw all my extra on the side. All right, now just gonna go ham. Actually, I'm gonna try and avoid this hole, but and again, there's another hole right there. Don't know if you can see from the camera angle, but again, avoiding that. You can see this is really sloppy, but whatever. Always add a little more or spread it out and use less if needed. See, again, this hole, I don't want to avoid that. That's gonna be it for now. So we can go ahead and dump this credit card away. now we've got that done, I'm going to go ahead get rid of all this. You can see I did a decent job of avoiding some holes, except for that one corner. So, you know, do a better job than me. But at the end of the day, that bit can kind of be scraped off. Now you're just going to want to let this dry. Preferably outside or in a really well ventilated area. Alright, that's the video. Thanks for watching.